Hi, friends. In today's episode, we're chatting with Doug Skoke, who's made bold moves and confident choices. A little about our huge hearted guest. He's a people person, he's driven with purpose, and also great at problem solving. As the founder and CEO of LFG Now, Doug Skoke is on a mission to connect the right people with the right opportunities. With grit, resilience, and a deep passion for building meaningful relationships, they thrive at intersection of talent and transformation. For those who believe people are our greatest asset, this conversation's for you. Let's dive in and welcome Doug Skoke to Bold Moves Confident Choices.
Oh, wow. 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 Let me just take that in for a minute. Thank you. This feels good.
Did
Yeah.
that get you fired up,
Oh,
Doug?
yeah. 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 Just seeing you gets me fired up. So it doesn't even take the narrative, but I do appreciate it very much.
Well,
Very.
thank you. I
Yeah.
am honored to have you here today. And I can't wait to learn more about you myself, Doug. So I'm
Beautiful.
going to start off by
Yeah.
saying, can you just share a little bit more about your story?
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. And in so many respects, I feel like my story is still being written.
Mm,
And I've always felt like feeling vital and fulfilled has so much more to do with who I am on the inside and what I do on the outside. So I'd like to address answering that question maybe from the inside out perspective.
I
So a
love
little bit
it.
about me. I am a native Floridian, born in Pittsburgh, moved to Miami when I was 1 year old. Pero mi español muy mal. Proud Gator, University of Florida grad. I am a Gen X dad, doing my level best to raise two adopted Gen Y sons. And that parenting journey has been unlike anything that I've ever envisioned. And I'm very blessed to have curated a special and productive relationship with my ex wife, who is an exceptional mom. My ride or die is Harley, the golden doodle, which I know you can appreciate being a
We
doodle.
love our doodles.
Woo, the best, the best. And I have an insatiable appetite for self discovery. So, for as long as I've been alive, and it doesn't come from a place of ego, it comes from a place of just trying to figure me out for whatever reason. There's not an assessment that you could throw my way that I wouldn't be a dance partner with. I describe myself as an ambivert, an ambiquirk. For anybody that's familiar with the MBTI, Myers Briggs Type Index, I'm an INFJ. I'm an Enneagram 4. That's the inside out. Now, on my professional journey, which would be the outside stuff, I'm in my fourth decade of my professional journey. And it's mostly been rooted in professional services, with the exception of when I graduated from the University of Florida. I was in the CPG industry. I took a job with
Mm,
the E&J Gallo Winery for my first few years. The red thread through all of the roles that I've had and places that I've been has been sales as an individual contributor, sales leadership and consulting. And it spanned Fortune 500 companies to SMB size companies. And I've just forever had this passion for people and problem solving. And I sort of fell into the perfect industry to scratch those issues about, I'll call it 8 years ago, when I aligned with a boutique staffing and recruitment firm in South Florida. And what I mean by scratching both those itches is, this might sound a little woo woo altruistic, but the feeling that comes along with upgrading somebody's life in a meaningful way and also solving a critical business issue sort of simultaneously, because that's what we're doing in this wacky industry, right? We're
right.
finding opportunities to extricate people from, maybe they're being underpaid or undervalued, or and they're in a toxic work environment where they want to flex some different skills. So I'm able to take that person and then match them with a company. And that's the solving the critical business issue, because they can't start a project or their sales are lagging or whatever the case may be. So that's the beautiful part of this industry. And I was on a great ride with it for about 7 years before the agency that I was aligned with wound down business operations. toward the end of last year. And then I made the bold move,
Woo!
entrepreneurship.
Here we go.
So I'm the founder and CEO of LFG Now. I consider myself to be a high touch recruitment firm headquartered down here in South Florida. I'm typically engaged with small to medium sized businesses who are receptive to working with an outside external hiring partner. And maybe it's because they're concerned their internal team doesn't have the bandwidth to do it. Maybe they don't even have an internal team to do it. Maybe they're frustrated with the quality of the candidate pool, or a myriad of different reasons. And what I've learned through feedback from my clients is they really attach value to the way that I operate, which is always mission over commission, results over rhetoric, consultative approach over transactional, and of course, people over everything.
Oh my gosh, Doug, this whole story you just shared with us encapsulates who you are and what I envision of you. When I mentioned that you are a huge hearted guest, you come from a place of authenticity and realness. And the way you just explained yourself from the inside out was remarkable. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
You also shared probably the most interesting explanation of being a recruiter to me.
Mm,
I don't believe anybody has ever shared that what you're doing for somebody, making their life better, but solving
mhm.
a business problem at the same time. You made that more real and more personal, and that I'm just not a transaction, for example, to some company that you're trying to place me. That's big.
That's huge. And that is a real driver for me. And I hope it comes through in my interactions, both on the candidate side, because there's two pieces to this, the candidate side and the client side. I hope that the way I carry myself does come through in that regard. It is all about people. It's not transactional whatsoever. And what I have found really empowering about making this move into entrepreneurship, it's scary, don't get me wrong. Like
Mhm.
I'm 3 months into this and it's a
It's
battle.
real. It's
It's
real.
real. It is very real. But I can also be extraordinarily discerning about who I partner with, because in my mind it is a partnership. It is not a transactional deal. So I feel like I am now completely empowered to align myself with the right kinds of clients and the right kinds of candidates. It feels great. Now, the sun, moon, and stars always have to align. I'm in the business of people. What is the
Right?
most unpredictable commodity, if you will, on earth is people.
People,
Right.
us.
So we're complex human beings, right?
I'm
But
not complex. I think
no,
I'm, yeah, pretty simple. Just
you're just,
kidding.
yeah, you're just simple. You're high energy and remarkable. When it all comes together, though, it truly is. It's a beautiful place to be, for sure.
Well, thank you, Doug, for really just putting that all together. Before we jump into a question that I'm very curious about with you.
Mhm.
And for all of you out there, Doug and I met in this amazing community called the Outlier Project, which is all about putting people first. And we just connected, hit it off from the moment we met. And it is because Doug is so authentic. And I know people use that word so easily, but Doug is always willing to sit down and have that in depth conversation with you. If you're going to open up, he'll give you the space. So, Doug, what would you say is the big, bold move, confident choice that took you professionally or personally to the next level?
Am I allowed to have two?
Absolutely. When we start reflecting on this, I
Yeah,
believe we all have many.
probably so. Yeah.
So, what two would you like to share today? I'm all
So,
ears.
and it's not necessarily, well, it's not, because that's not what I'm going to cite to. The one that I just made in diving into the world of entrepreneurship, we're going back decades. Well, the first one, it goes back decades, which comes to mind. I had mentioned on the outset that I was in the consumer product goods industry for a few years right outside of college. Okay, so I was with the Gallo Winery, and they called you a field marketing manager, but it was very much of a sales position. And they place you, the winery, inside of distributorships that sell their product, their wines, as well as other, whatever it is, beer,
Right.
wine, spirits. And my role within these distributors was always to be the advocate, the champion for the brand. I was like the brand person,
Right.
rallying the troops around. And I was in the on premise division. So hotels, restaurants, country clubs, wherever the products were sold on premise. My career moved nicely for about 3 years. I was in North Carolina for a while, actually, and then moved to Georgia. I was in Atlanta. I was placed inside of a hugely successful, massive distributorship in Atlanta. And that was a wonderful experience. And then one day, his name's Ryan, that I remember, whatever his big position was, he asked me to come to the office and meet with him. And he said, I've got a great opportunity for you. I said, what's that, Ryan? He said, well, the winery, it was always referred to as the winery, is looking to expand the portfolio in the Nordic countries. And he paused. I had no idea what that even meant. I don't even know how old I was at that time. And I said, okay. He says, well, we already have somebody in Sweden, and we really need to get a winery asset to Finland. And we think that you would be a great person for this in Helsinki, Finland. So this is so long ago that, we didn't have the internet. We didn't even have cell phones at that point in time. I had no idea where Finland was. God's honest truth. I had no idea. I just sounded far away. So I immediately went to a bookstore and took it like a world atlas out, and unrolled that thing. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, there's Russia. Oh, there's Finland right next to it. Okay. So that was a massive decision. And I went and took the opportunity and I moved there sight unseen. I'd never traveled out of the United States before, and I wasn't really a seasoned traveler. And I moved to a little suburb of Helsinki called Espoo in the middle of the winter, sight unseen. And they put me up in this little apartment, which was the size of a big closet, for a month or two while somebody helped me try to find an apartment to live in. And that was a massively bold, exceptional bet on myself, sort of go with the flow. I have no idea what this experience is going to teach me or tell me or expose me to. And I was scared as could be. And I'm a South Florida guy, and I'm moving to one of the coldest places. It was amazing. I was there for about a year and a half and I learned so much about myself. Yeah, I journaled my whole experience and
Incredible.
I go back through it. I've done it at least once every 1 or 2 years, just randomly, and reflect on it and that journey and some of the adventures that I went on and what it taught me about me and what I could accomplish. How interreliant we are as human beings on one another. As independent as I'm ruggedly independent. I've gotten even more so the more that I've learned about myself. But you can't go it alone. I was forced to understand it's all fun and games if you're visiting somewhere. But when, boom, I dropped down in Helsinki, Finland, there's really not many expats outside of embassy personnel. And I have to figure out now phone, going to the grocery, setting up a bank account, calling taxis. I had to be so reliant on other people. And Europeans are so multilingual that it helped, but it's not. And learning Finnish is, forget about it. It's a Hungarian based language that every word is like 72 consonants or something like that. Like it's an impossible language. That was a huge piece for me. That
And
no matter
remember,
how you,
everyone, there weren't smartphones back then.
no, absolutely not. No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Mm-mm. And that started me down this path of cementing how important mindset is, because there was more days than I could count where loneliness would set in and the voices inside the head, like, what the hell are you doing? How do we get back home? It forced me to go in. And that's where the journaling came in, to try to make heads and tails of, okay, what are these fears? What's the underlying message here behind these fears, which is it's control. We all want control. I wanted to know certainty. What's my exit strategy here? How's the next month going to go? And it was that my first real punch to the face and key learning that we control almost nothing except our response to things. That's what I'm in complete control over. That
Right.
was the kickstart for me and my mindset journey. I learned through that
So, Doug, this is when you became very introspective with yourself.
for sure. I realized that when I describe myself as an ambivert, which is a real word, by the way, for those of us that are more introverted than extroverted, but we have the ability to sort of flex our extroverted muscle when we need
Hmm.
to or want to,
Right.
that's where you become an ambivert. So I'm not a full on introvert where I need 18 hours a day of solitude, but I do know as an ambivert, when I take myself out of that introverted state, whether I'm going to a networking event or a party, or I have to be overly sociable for some reason, I'm able to do that and enjoy myself doing it. But I also know on the back end, it takes a tremendous amount of energy so that I'm going to have to replenish that. So I could go both ways.
And
Yeah,
finding that balance for yourself.
huge, huge. I got to
Wow.
get to my second bold move though,
Oh,
because
yes, please. Please
I,
keep going. What is number two for you? Number one was fantastic.
number two, now we're going to fast forward decades. I found myself, and this wasn't that long ago. This is right before I said I fell into this industry, the staffing and recruitment industry. Well, this is what preceded that. It started maybe 10 years ago, but I found myself in an industry that was absolutely incongruent with who I am. It was not a good fit. And the decision and the key learning for this was I was chasing money, period. The industry itself, and I'm not throwing shade on anybody that's in the industry because I was surrounded by incredibly successful people in the insurance industry. I had an opportunity to join a Fortune 500 company on the risk management and property and casualty insurance side at a certain phase of my life, which was only 10 years ago. And I was chasing money because I knew people in the insurance industry were so super successful. And hey, why can't I do that? And I had to, first of all, study and get my 220 broker's license, which was the hardest exam I've ever taken. And I'm not a great test taker. So I was already like day one, I'm already like, oh my God, this business is too complex for me. And then it was just incongruent for a lot of reasons
Yeah.
I don't want to chew up more time on. But for anybody that's listening, maybe yourself in your own journey too, where you're in an environment and you know it's not necessarily the best environment, and you're performing, but perhaps not at the level that you would like to be performing, and certainly not at the level that your CEO or boss thinks you should be performing. I hit that for a couple years in the insurance. So it was getting uncomfortable. It was
Hmm.
definitely getting very uncomfortable. And I had decided about 2.5 years into it, 3 years into it, that I had to extricate myself from this situation. But that's not easy to do because I don't even counsel people on leaving a job before they have traction with finding another job or even have secured another job. So it's like a do as I say, not as I do. But I
Good
know
point.
myself at this point so well that I know, and I alluded to my top five Clifton strengths. One of them is responsibility. What this means is in my hard wiring, I take psychological ownership over anything that I say or do. And I'm a maximizer also, which means my bar for performance is set at excellence. Doesn't make me special. I'm just saying this is my hard wiring. This is who I am. So now I'm completely miserable. The CEO is not making my life very easy, which I understand. I'm not performing at the level that he would like. And I can't fake anything. So I did not have the ability to look for another job while still trying to perform at the level that I hold myself to and that I was expected to, kind of thing. So the bold move was I decided I'm going to tender my resignation. And I had absolutely no plan from there. It was gut wrenchingly hard. I called a meeting with my CEO, had no idea what to expect. It was leading in this direction anyway. I felt like it was going to come to a head one way or the other. It was going to be on my
Right.
terms or their terms, like a PIP or something like that, performance
Right.
improvement. So I tendered my resignation. My CEO he was really wonderful because he appreciated me as a human being and the effort that I put forth and the relationships that I built. And we sort of agreed it just wasn't a great fit. So he was very supportive of my exit, tried to make it a little bit of a soft landing, and just wanted to make sure that, look, go find what your passion is. And that was a beautiful message. But that was a massively bold move. So that was when I'm like, okay, I'm extraordinarily spiritual, as you know. And you talk about these abstract concepts like surrender and trust. And okay, that sounds all woo woo and great, but what does that really mean? And
Right.
that's when my whole journey really started about 8 years ago when I put that stuff to practice. Because when I resigned without another job or a plan, I was essentially saying to whatever higher power, I'm completely surrendering to this moment. And I trust that whatever is going to be in my path lying ahead is going to be for my greater, higher good. And I fell into the industry that I've been in now for the last 8 years, which I think I'm pretty good at and I thrive in. It really fills me up.
Doug, there's so many people, I'm confident, that are in those shoes today, just
Mhm.
following the money. And it's really a hard concept to pull ourselves away from that and to just surrender. So, what are words of wisdom you can give to us all on allowing yourself? How do you get to that surrender point?
I feel like everybody is on their own journey, right? And
Mhm.
I had to get to the place where the fork is in the road. There's two paths. And I just had enormous belief and trust because I know how I operate, which is I can't kick the can, make pretend, give half of myself to something. So the two things are I had to know myself really, really well. That's extraordinarily important, which will
Right.
get me to the something else when you ask me the next question, probably. And then I don't have a good answer for you. We all get there in our own way, but it's extraordinarily powerful if or when you get to a point where you feel like all will be well in the end. And if it's not well now, it's not the end. And when I made that bold decision to resign, to be super frank, it's 2025. I'm on a 20-year bender right now of the universe of my life just throwing body blows at me. I was already well down this road, sort of getting beaten down in
Right.
a good way. I welcome it. One of my
Right.
tattoos, Amor Fati. It means the love of fate. It's a concept in Stoicism that's rooted in, if you think about this, and for anybody else that may be listening, because you have thousands of people that are following your podcast right now.
Yes.
What it means is if you think on your life about every single opportunity that you've had to grow, to actualize, to become better, I promise you it has come to you disguised as adversity. That's what that is. So I've been on a long track here of dealing with adversity. So the resignation piece of this story, that bold move, I was already well down this path of it's time to surrender.
The process.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
back to your point at the beginning of this episode is your story is still continuing. We're still in the midst of our story, our journey. We keep living our journey and our story. So, as we reflect back, Doug, what would you say to little Doug at his
Little
18-year-old
Dougie.
self?
Little Dougie. Do I
Little
call him Little
Dougie.
Dougie Fresh?
Yeah, little Dougie Fresh.
Little Dougie Fresh. I would say that emotional intelligence, EQ, is just as important as IQ. That one gets you through school and the other gets you through life. So the
Yes.
18-year-old little Dougie, yes, IQ in school is important, but EQ is going to be what carries you through life. And imagine having to spend at 18 years old as little Dougie at 18. Imagine having to spend the rest of your life with one person, and that one person is you. So there's no more important relationship to have, little Dougie, than the relationship that you cultivate with yourself. Hard stop, period, end of story. Work harder on that relationship with self than anything you do the rest of your life. That's what I would say. Would he listen to it?
Doug, that really resonated with me a lot. Not until later in my life, I always would tell people I'm a street smart girl, not a book girl. And to your point, if we can just embrace what our strengths are as early as possible,
Mhm.
that's when we start to let ourselves shine. But we've got to look inward and keep digging. It's a never ending process. There are so many layers to each one of us.
It's an inside out job. You've heard that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
It will always be that way.
Doug, this has been an incredible conversation. And again, I'm going to keep going back to the first statement I said, saying you are a huge hearted guest. Getting to know a deeper level of you has been amazing today. And I want to thank you for laying that on the table with all of us who are listening to this. What would you like to leave us all with today?
That happiness is no more complicated than stitching together a whole bunch of happy moments. But what complicates it for all of us is we get so fixated on the end goal, the happy life, that we gloss right over all of the moments. And the more that we can all stay firmly rooted in the present, the better off we'll all be.
Wow, that one got me, probably because it hit close to home for me, Doug. Because you're right. We all finish. There's so many times I look towards the end result instead of being in the moment. So, Doug, thank you for sharing your space, your energy with us today.
Thank you for inviting me in. This was an absolute pleasure. I love it. I feel like we talked about this a long time ago, maybe, and
It's
everything
it's
happens according to plan.
it does. And to all of our listeners, my listeners out here, please go be bold, be confident, and
Mhm.
be you. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Court. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Bold Moves, Confident Choices. Remember, the boldest moves come from trusting ourselves and taking action. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share with someone who needs a little extra boost to boldness. Until next time, be bold, be confident, be you. Thanks.